Epic chess showdown alert. We have here the clash of the titans in chess.com's Aimchess Rapid in 2023. We have here the clash between Magnus Carlsen, the unparalleled strategic and positional master, the endgame god, against the fearless kid, Nodirbek Abdusatorov, who was always a great tactician that could always spice up the game somehow in the middle game stage. So it was always a pleasure to watch these two guys battling it out in rapid, in classic, in blitz bullet games. Always a sharp technical game they gave us for sure. So they had to play 4 rapid games. The better player out of 4 games is of course the winner, will move up into the next round. And the first game, Magnus Carlsen won with the black pieces. Now we're following the second game, in which Magnus had the white pieces, and this game had, in my opinion, the move of the year. Pay good attention, put your seatbelts on. Incredible game played by these two top grandmasters. So let's see now the game. Magnus with the white pieces opened with the move e4. Nodirbek's response was c5 Sicilian, knight to f3 French variation, open variation here, taking out in the center of the board. Knight to f6 hitting the pawn. Magnus protects now the pawn with the bishop on d3. Nodirbek goes now into this chevening structures with d6 e6, keeping the flexibility in the game to push maybe e5 or d5 in the later stage of the game. c4, Magnus builds the so-called Maroczy bind, has of course a great control of the d5 square. Bishop to e7, knight to c3, normal development, and now Nodirbek plays this concept with the move a6. I'm calling this move a concept because there are basically 2 concepts that you're applying when you're playing against the Maroczy bind. Basically what you can do is battle somehow maybe against this pawn on c4 and also break and enter with the move d5. So you're trying to somehow break, you're trying basically to let the position explode in the center of the board. Or you can play a more positional concept later with the move a5, and then to maybe reroute one of your knights here on c5, have a nice grip on dark squares, maybe even play g6, bishop to f6, but basically then you are battling for the dark squares. So as I said, there are 2 concepts, either you're playing for the dark squares or you're playing for the light squares. So here Nodirbek plays now the move a6 with the preparation to hit the flanks, maybe with the move b5, but this will be a problem. You see why in the later stage of the game, because you cannot play then afterwards on this concept to fix your knight on c5, which is many times a normal strategic concept when you play with the black pieces, and then you see you didn't play a5, you can get hit by the pawn on b4. We'll come to the later stage of this problem, but I wanted to show really 2 approaches for black against the Maroczy bind. So here bishop to e3, kingside castling b6 here by Nodirbek, and now Magnus has here the opportunity to play maybe f3, queen to e2, rook to c1, h3 is also an opportunity. Magnus plays really an interesting line f4. It's really the most aggressive way. Usually in the Maroczy bind with the white pieces, you're playing a slow build up. You're just improving your pieces a little bit. You're not rushing into the attack, but now Magnus pulled off really the sharpest line with the move f4. Queen to c7, not a good continuation here for Nodirbek. A better choice has to be this move e5. You have to play it now. It was your chance to break and enter in the center. Look at this. After something like knight to e2, we attack the bishop, takes, and now you can fix your structure around the square e5, leave your opponent also with the weak pawn on e4. Okay, you have also weak pawn on d6, but I think this would be a playable line now for black. So queen to c7 allows here Magnus Carlsen to attack the queen indirectly, and there is also common tactical pattern that can happen in the Sicilian, not necessarily only in the Maroczy bind. There are many games in the Nidor in which you're playing simply this beautiful hop with the knight to d5, and then somehow maybe the c file gets liberated, or you get maybe a central pawn sword when you connect somehow the c pawn to the d file, and then you have maybe 3 connected pawns that are rolling in the center of the board. So this has to be really a familiar motif for you if you're playing with the white, or if you're playing of course also with the black pieces, because you can expect your opponent to do this kind of a move. So knight from b to d7, Magnus goes now all in, g4, good move, knight to c5, and you see now you're trying to fix the structure around your knight on c5, but you didn't play the move a5, and now in the next couple moves we can expect the move b4 for sure. Now even if you play a5, then you have such a weak square here on b5. You have also then a weakness on c6. So Magnus first of all retreats with the bishop. Here Nodirbek is hitting further the pawn on e4. Magnus protects it, but now after move g6, now b4, and you see now after a couple more moves, Magnus has now such a space advantage, a big space advantage in the center of the board. Basically, black is simply pushed simply far away on its own half now. From this point on, I think Magnus is strategically dominating all over the board. So g5 here by Magnus, kicking away the knight. Knight drops back on h5. We have now this monstrous move, and maybe you can pause the video and try to see now an interesting here maybe line for white. We have discussed it already here now in this video, but now it will become really an epic atom splitting move here that Magnus Carlsen produced in the middle game stage. So try to see now maybe a good continuation. Okay, here Magnus played the impossible knight to d5. As I said, this is a really familiar motif in Sicilians, and there are many things that you can do. Let's see, of course, the obvious continuation. If you play e takes d5, this was the move that Nodirbek did not play, so he didn't want to go in such a tactical battle. But look how crazy really this position is. If you play here e takes f5, e takes d5, then you have this one, knight to f5 is even a possibility. You can even take out now this other knight, but now comes a dirty idea, c takes d5, liberating now the c file. If you drop back, of course, with the knight, you lose the queen. If you move the queen here to d8, we'll pick up now the knight, and you have to now bring more defenders into the game. For instance, you play rook to e8, you're trying knight to f8, protecting the pawn on h7, but look at this, rook to f3 with the idea rook to h3, rook takes queen takes h7. Even if you try something like this, then look at this, bishop to d4 is even an opportunity, queen to h6, queen to g7, a checkmate threat. So although up a whole piece, black is getting tactically destroyed by this enormous pressure that white can build. So after knight to d5, okay, after e takes d5, you don't have to, of course, after knight to f5 play the game like this. You can, of course, also play rook from a to e8, protecting your bishop on e7, but still it's complicated. Again, c takes d5, you drop back, knight to h6. The engine actually gives here only a slight edge in white's favor. Probably this is defendable even for black by maybe playing a repetition, maybe king to g7, knight to f5. Maybe you can spice it up by playing queen to f2, hitting maybe the pawn on b6. So as I said, it would be a tough battle for both sides. You can have to again prove your point with your piece sacrifice. You can also maybe try something like h4, maybe after f6, knight to f5 again. So many opportunities, but after move knight to d5, here Nodirbek played a retreating move, queen to d8. Magnus hits now the bishop on e7. We have queen to e7, and suddenly Nodirbek is left now with many dark square problems. So here queen to h3 was played by Magnus, preparing now f5, hitting further here on light squares, including also the knight into the game, and maybe later, if possible, somehow get the bishop on d4, maybe even try to deliver checkmate on g7. So rook from a to e8, we have rook from c to e1, putting the rook where already the queen is. If something clears in the center again, the queen could be in danger. So queen to d8, knight to e2. We have now the move e5. This wasn't a good move by Nodirbek. This was now maybe even his crucial positional mistake in the game. Better choice was to play simply queen to c7. You have to attack now the pawn on c4. If bishop to d3 happens, still I think you have good chances because you are waiting here. Even if, for instance, white pushes now the pawn on f5 in this particular position, if it doesn't protect the pawn on c4, will simply takes, and now you pick up this one, and the next couple of moves, this could be very risky, especially here if black maybe builds a beautiful battery on light squares with the bishop and the queen. So this is not good what Nodirbek did. He played now the move e5. Magnus, of course, plays now the move f5, and he's destroying now the whole king side with this beautiful pawn mobility. So f6, we have queen to h4, rook to f7, rook to d1, hitting the weak pawn. Nodirbek protects it, and now finally bishop to d3, protecting now the pawn on c4. Rook to f8, g takes f6, knight to f6, bishop to h6, and now g5. Here by Nodirbek, interesting idea to somehow open the g file. Nodirbek is trying to play king to h8, rook to g8, hitting now the king on the g file, but Probably a better choice was maybe even to play knight to g7. This would be solid. Then after something like knight to g3, you can hang on to this position somehow, maybe even somehow try open here the position, maybe later if possible also to push the pawn on d5. So maybe this was a better choice, but really interesting idea here by Nodirbek. G5, Magnus takes, now Nodirbek drops back with the king, but it's threatening of course to move rook to g8. Bishop takes f8, we have rook takes f8, knight to g3, we have rook to g8 anyway, and now after move queen to h6, now queen to f7. Here of course the threat is knight takes g3 followed with king takes g3. So we have here bishop to e2 by Magnus Carlsen. He's trying now to attack now this knight more with more pieces. In the game we have knight to f4 by Nodirbek, and now Magnus rushed here a little bit. He played a move that I think 90% of any players would play because it's an attractive move. Of course he played the move rook to f4. It seems tempting, but this was really unnecessary. Here a normal idea is just to play here bishop to f3, protecting your pawn on e4. You don't have to rush, you don't have to risk anything here. If of course knight to e4 happens, we can take bishop to e4. Okay, you can take out also this one. Obviously we cannot take with the knight because of this activity by the rook, but you can be calm here. Rook to d6, you take also another pawn, and if possible you trade off maybe the queens off the board. Now you can maybe play rook to f4, but now after queen to f4 maybe we can trade off more pieces. And now the problem, maybe one of possible lines, is that you simply gain too much pawns here. You will simply pick up also the pawn on b6, and the game is, in my opinion, over here for black. So this would be one possible line. But here Magnus rushed it. Of course he played rook to f4. We couldn't expect less, of course, by the strongest player in the world. He sacrifices the rook back. He's saying show me what you got. But of course after e takes f4 and queen to f4, it's not so easy to play anymore this position, because the light square bishop of yours is a little bit blocked out by your own pawn structure. On the other hand, this bishop on b7 is hitting the weak g2 square. Combined with the rook, there are at least some tactical threats here in white's position. So we have now knight to e4. Nodirbek gets now his pawn back. We have king to f1 by Magnus. We have queen to g7, and now f6. Magnus is trying to simplify the game by trading off the queens, but Nodirbek is of course not interested. He takes out now with the knight, and now Magnus plays maybe even his first really blunder in the game, king to e1. He gets the king towards the center. This was really unnecessary. He should have simply taken this pawn, and now after something like knight to e4, again maybe trying somehow to trade off the queens, and this should be perfectly fine. Probably even a winning endgame here for white. But he played king to e1, which allowed here Nodirbek to pin the bishop here on e2. If you play something like queen to d4, maybe to overload a little bit the queen on g7, then bishop to f3 I think is perfectly fine. You can trade off more pieces. The king is centralized, the king is naked here, so in my opinion this should be solid also for black. But Nodirbek played now the move queen to e7. Now this whole idea is not working. Magnus finally took out now the pawn on d6, but we have to say it, both players were under time pressure in this particular moment, so you cannot really play the game easily here. King to g7, now Magnus takes another pawn. Now Nodirbek plays this idea, but it's a little bit too late. Rook to d8. Magnus has now the chance to simplify the game by trading off the rooks. Now after knight to f6, he allowed here check, but after queen to f2, king to f2 here in this particular position, Nodirbek Abdulsatorov resigned, because there is simply no good defense against queen to d4. If you pick up the pawn on b4, you get even here checkmated. Queen to d4, you can only cover with the knight, but now we play something like this, and then again it's a checkmate. So after king to f2, in the next move the queens will be off the board, and then of course with this 3 versus 1 pawn majority, it's a completely winning endgame here for Magnus Carlsen. So what to say, incredible game again by these two top grandmasters. Incredible hop of the knight on d5. Magnus spiced up the game. Incredible performance again. He's really in top shape. I'm really glad that the real Magnus Carlsen is back. He had some issues in the past months, but now he's really in top shape. He won the tournament here in my home country in Croatia, and he's now, of course, also the top favorite to win the Aimchess Rapid in 2023. And in the whole match, Magnus Carlsen won with 2.5 points against Nodirbek's half point. In the third game, also crazy things happened. Please check it out. Also, Nodirbek had a completely winning endgame, but messed it up. Magnus Carlsen found a beautiful draw sequence. But okay, this was still Magnus Carlsen's great performance. I think deserved to win against Nodirbek. In the past, we have seen also Nodirbek won some games against Magnus Carlsen, so deserved win here for Magnus for sure. So okay, if you want to see more Magnus Carlsen's chess games and also more Nodirbek uploads, sort of chess games, please check out our commented chess games here on my YouTube chess channel. Here's the link of our playlist. And if you want to see maybe even wilder games, check out our commented chess games played by computer series. Here's also the link. And if you like this content, don't forget to subscribe to my channel. See you soon with some more videos, and what to say, chess is the best, of course.